Hey friends! Today I'm getting into some actual construction of my Grey Warden cosplay from Dragon Age. This time I'm making the scale mail and base for my tabard. I made my scales out of upholstery vinyl, and I actually got this idea from a Tumblr user that goes by Jancola, and I will link her tutorial all about making these below. Although I did make a few tweaks to her method to achieve the look that I wanted. So I cut out all of my scales using a little template that I made. I think my scale count totaled at a little over 500. I suggest finding something to binge watch and keep you sane while you're doing this. Oh, and take frequent breaks because your wrist will start hurting. Once I had them all cut out, I stapled them together into threes. If you don't want to use staples, you can totally sew these by hand or machine. I just preferred stapling these because it took me less time, personally. I then created strips of the scales for both the front and back of the tabard. This is something you don't have to do if you're not too concerned with how the back of your cosplay looks. There are probably ways to cheat on the back scales of your cosplay, but I didn't do that, however, because I am a glutton for pain. Once they were all put together, they needed to be painted. Before painting, I put down some primer. You can use whatever kind you like. I personally had Mod Podge on hand, but something like Plasti-Dip will work just fine. The paint I used was Rust-Oleum Specialty Metallic in Silver. I love the color payoff for this paint, and it's actually pretty flexible after drying. Once the scales had dried for a few hours, I brought them in and started gluing them together, just with tiny spots of hot glue to keep them from flipping up. After that, I weathered them with watered down black acrylic paint. I then stitched my freshly dyed bias tape down around the edge of my scale strips, using binding clips to hold it in place while I sewed. In retrospect, I should have glued the scales after this step. The whole time I did this, my needle kept getting jammed, and it was pretty frustrating. I made the base for my tabard by measuring down from my neckline to just above my knees. This was 32 inches for me. I used wrapping paper to draw out the pattern, and using a well-fitting shirt as a template for the neckline and shoulder. I made a mark 32 inches down from my neckline, and then I drew an 8-inch line at an angle from that mark and connected it to the line at the shoulder. The paper I used had grid lines on it, so I was able to do this pretty easily. I made the tabard out of the fabric that I dyed in the previous work log. That fabric was muslin, but I'm going to advise you to use a naturally thicker fabric like Kona cotton or even gabardine. I doubled this one up and it worked okay, but the scales can get very heavy and potentially warp the fabric. Now I thought I recorded this, but maybe I didn't or something happened to the footage, and I'm sorry, but I sewed all the scales down onto the tabard using my machine and added the same binding around the edge of my tabard, and it was done! Thank you guys so much for watching my cosplay work log, and if you want to see more, you should check out my previous videos and subscribe. I have some social media links in the description if you want to chat with me about Dragon Age, which is literally all I ever want to do. Also, if you like me enough to throw some coins in my hat, you can find some info on how to support the channel in the description as well. Thanks again for watching, and have a great week. Bye!